My husband chose to give my savings of $100,000 to his parents and his sister. He also threatened to divorce me if I objected. Then they went shopping. But when they tried to withdraw the money, they discovered that they couldn't do it. Since I was little, I had the dream of having a family of my own, one that was simple and traditional, different from the life I lived in a foster home. I grew up surrounded by other children, but I always felt a void, as if I was missing something essential. A home where unconditional love and understanding reigned, where each member was a pillar of support. For the others, it was at work where I met Cameron. He was different from the others, with a smile that lit up the room and a kindness that penetrated deeply. We quickly became friends, and over time that friendship became something more. I clearly remember the day he proposed to me. We were sitting in a small park watching the sunset. He took my hand, looking into my eyes with a seriousness that he rarely showed on Cameron. "What's wrong?" I asked him, feeling a knot in my stomach at his unusually solemn expression. I have always believed in destiny, in the idea that there is someone perfect for each of us, and I'm not sure, that someone is you. He started, making my heart beat hard. "I want us to be more than friends, more than boyfriends. I want us to form that traditional family that we both dream of. Would you marry me?" The words resonated in my mind, mixing with emotions that I had never felt before. Surprise, joy, fear, and hope intertwined in my chest. Cameron's proposal was everything I had wanted, but it also made me realize the commitment it implied was scary. However, looking into his eyes, seeing his sincerity, love, I knew that my answer could only be yes. "Cameron, I will marry you. Together, we will build that home full of love and understanding that we both long for," I said finally, and a glow of happiness illuminated his face. That moment became the beginning of a new stage in my life. With Cameron by my side, I felt that I could finally have that traditional and loving home that I had always wanted. The idea of forming a family together, of being a team in every sense, filled my heart with hope and enthusiasm that I had never known before. However, as often happens, reality and dreams do not always align perfectly. Our path towards building that ideal family would be full of obstacles and challenges that we never imagined. But at that moment, under the sky dyed red and orange at sunset, everything seemed possible. Cameron and I were ready to face the world together with the firm intention of making our dream of having a traditional and happy family come true. At 29 years old, full of enthusiasm and hope, I got married. With Cameron, a man who seemed to promise love and company. However, reality soon showed another side, one that I would never have imagined when pronouncing my vows. Life with Cameron and his family became a constant source of disappointment and stress that I did not expect in my new married life. From the beginning, Cameron lost his job, and with it any interest in looking for another job. This dropped the entire weight of economic support and domestic tasks on my shoulders. Not only did I have to work full days to support us, but when he returned home, a second day awaited me, one full of household chores that neither his mother nor his sister, Yasmin, considered their responsibility. One day, while I was cleaning after a long day of work, Cameron, sitting on the couch, didn't bother to help. His mother and Yasmin were chatting animatedly without paying attention to the effort I was making around them. That afternoon, I decided to express my feelings. "Cameron, we need to talk," I said in a firm but tired tone. "This is not what I imagined our marriage would be. I work all day, and I expect a little help at home, not only because it's part of your responsibility, but also your mother and Yasmin." Cameron, without moving and without taking his eyes off the vision, responded, "They don't have to work, Rebecca. You are the wife, and these are your responsibilities, my responsibilities. You replicate teamwork." "Cameron, I can't do everything alone, "And it's not fair that you expect it," I replied, her mother interrupting, said, "Look, daughter, in this house, we have always functioned like this. Cameron works when he can, and we take care of the house. But now, it's your turn." Frustrated and exhausted, I responded, "This is not a family, it is an unbalanced team where I am the only one who is really playing." With each passing day, my disillusionment grew. Cameron showed no interest in changing the situation, and his family seemed content to leave all the burdens on me. The arguments became more frequent and more intense, and the gap between us grew more and more. One night, while I was preparing dinner after a long argument, I decided that I needed more from life than a one-sided marriage full of disdain and lack of cooperation. While serving the food, I said, "Cameron, this is not working. I can't be the only one struggling for this family. I need you and your family to contribute. I don't know how much more I can take." Cameron simply shrugged his shoulders, and his response was a reflection of his apathy. "Yes, if you're not happy, you know what you can do, Rebecca." That night in bed, I thought about my options, about my life before Cameron, and what I expected from the future. The disappointment of a marriage that promised love and companionship but left me alone in every sense of the term became heavier and heavier with each passing day. The dream of a traditional and loving family was fading, leaving in its place the bitter taste of reality. The situation at home was becoming more sustainable every day. Cameron had begun to use the health of his mother and sister Yasmin as constant excuses to avoid looking for a job and leaving work early, behaviors that ultimately resulted in his dismissal. This attitude not only increased tensions at home, but also magnified the daily conflicts we faced every morning before leaving for work. The same scene was repeated. Cameron stayed in bed, promising that he would look for a job. That day, however, upon returning, I found him in the same place. He had often not even attempted to prepare something to eat. One day, tired of this routine, I confronted Cameron again at home. "Cameron, I thought that today you would look for a job," I said with a tone of disappointment. "I couldn't hide. You know that my mother is not feeling well. Rebecca, I need to be here in case she needs anything," he answered without showing remorse. "But every day it is the same, Cameron, and when you are at home you don't do anything to help. You don't even try to lighten the load a little," I said, with insensitive retorts. "I can't leave them alone," he said, avoiding my gaze. These discussions were becoming more and more frequent and less productive. Cameron had become a burden at home, not only emotionally and economically, but also physically, since his empty promises filled the atmosphere with palpable resentment. One afternoon, I came home from work and found Cameron and Yasmin watching television while her mother rested in her room. This time, my patience ran out. "Cameron, this can't go on like this. You're not looking for a job, you're not helping at home, and I'm carrying everything." "This has to change," I exclaimed, no longer able to contain my anger. "Rebecca, I really need you to understand the situation. My mother and Yasmin are sick. They need someone to take care of them," he tried to explain with a tone of supplication. "And what about our needs, Cameron? What about ours? Our life together? You can't continue using your mother's health and your sister as an excuse for everything. You need to take responsibility," I argued, hoping that my words would provoke some kind of reaction in him. However, the situation did not improve. Cameron's excuses became more creative with each passing day, and his disinterest in contributing to the home increased the tension between us. My discontent and disappointment grew with each excuse. With each day of inactivity, the respect and love that I once felt for him crumbled a little more. Finally, one night after a long and tense discussion about his responsibilities and our financial situation, Cameron said, "If you are so unhappy, perhaps you should reconsider our marriage. I can't offer you more than what I'm doing now," he said almost defiantly. Those words resonated with me with devastating clarity. The reality of my marriage to Cameron was diametrically opposed to the dream I once had. He had not only stopped being the partner and support I expected, but had become an obstacle to my well-being. This unsustainable situation, full of wear and tear and continuous frustrations, forced me to rethink everything I had believed and expected from our life together. Of course, something had to change, and soon, in the midst of the daily chaos and disappointment I felt at home, an unexpected event marked a significant change in my life. It was a typical night. I returned late from work, exhausted and prepared to face the domestic duties that I knew awaited me. However, when I opened the door of the house, I found a completely different scene. Yasmin was on the couch, visibly affected by alcohol, and at her side a young man I had never seen before seemed to care for her with genuine concern. His presence was a surprise, and for a moment I did not know how to react. The young man, upon seeing me, quickly got up and introduced himself with a courtesy that I had rarely experienced in my own home. "Good evening. I am Thomas, a waiter at the bar where Yasmin was tonight. She had too many drinks, and I thought it would be safer to bring her home," explained Thomas, his voice showing a tone of concern and responsibility that immediately made me feel a respite from the heaviness of my routine, which I really appreciated. "Thank you for bringing her." "Thank you, Thomas," I responded, impressed by his thoughtful gesture. "You paid for the taxi yourself?" "Yes, it wasn't much, and it didn't seem right to leave her alone in that state," he said, looking at Yasmin with an expression of genuine concern. Thomas's attitude was so attentive, and this chance encounter in my living room not only showed Thomas's qualities as an individual, but also put into perspective the deficiencies in my marriage while helping. I asked Yasmin to go to bed so she could get a good night's sleep, and I continued talking with Thomas. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to feel that human connection that I had missed so much. "You work as a waiter. You always end up taking care of the customers." So I asked, half jokingly, trying to lighten the atmosphere. "Let's say, no, it's part of the job, but I think helping someone in need is the right thing to do, don't you think?" He responded with a shy smile that I couldn't help but reciprocate. "Yes, it's the right thing to do. Something my husband and his family seem to have forgotten," I said, more for myself than for him, reflecting out loud about the ironies of my life. Thomas nodded, understanding the situation without needing further explanation. "Well, if you need anything else, here is my number. Don't hesitate to call if Yasmin needs anything else when she wakes up, or if you need help with something else," he offered, handing me a small card before saying goodbye. "Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate what you have done tonight," I said, feeling a mixture of gratitude and admiration for the kindness of this virtual stranger. Thomas's departure that night left a lasting impression on me. In that brief meeting, he proved to be a man of principle and empathy, two qualities that I desperately needed in my life. As I closed the door behind him, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the last time I would see Thomas. Cameron either did not understand or did not want to understand the impact of his actions on my part. Every word he said convinced me more that this was not the man I wanted to build a life with. This is exactly what I feared, Cameron. That you would see our marriage less like a partnership and more like a convenience for you and your family. This can't go on like this. I'm not willing to live in a marriage where my opinions and needs are constantly ignored, I concluded. The decision crystallized in my mind. Cameron didn't say much after. Maybe he had crossed a line, or maybe he was too proud to admit his mistake. It didn't matter, and at that moment, I knew that something had to change, that I needed more from life and love, something that Cameron was evidently not willing or able to give me. This revelation was painful, but necessary. It marked the definitive breaking point in our marriage, the moment I knew I couldn't move forward with someone who showed so little respect for me and what together we had tried to build. The day I decided to end it. My marriage to Cameron was bitter but necessary. The situation had reached an unsustainable point, and after the betrayal of savings, I knew I needed to free myself to regain my peace and dignity. I prepared the divorce papers with trembling hands, but with a firm resolution, aware that this act marked the end of a painful stage and the beginning of something new for me. I arrived home with the documents and found Cameron in the living room, casually watching television as if nothing were amiss with my presence with the papers in hand. However, it caught his attention immediately. "Cameron, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep calm and firmness in my voice. When he saw the papers, his expression changed slightly, but he did not show surprise. It was as if internally he was also waiting for this moment. "What is that, Rebecca?" he asked, although the answer was already evident from the thickness of the envelope I was carrying. "Are the divorce papers, Cameron? I can't continue with this marriage that clearly isn't working for either of us," I explained, feeling a knot in my stomach, but knowing that it was the right thing to do. Cameron took the papers and looked at them briefly. "Are you sure?" he finally asked, looking directly at me. His voice was serious, without a trace of the usual disdain. "Yes, completely sure. This decision comes after much reflection. There is no respect, trust, or collaboration in our relationship. I need to move on, Cameron." I started with a mixture of sadness and relief. To my surprise, Cameron didn't protest. He signed the papers with a resignation that I had not seen in him before. "If that makes you happy, then okay," he said, handing me the signed documents. "Thank you for understanding," I replied, although I knew that the gratitude was more for the completion of the process than for his attitude during our marriage. With the signed divorce papers in hand, I felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. There were no tears, not even a meaningful goodbye. Cameron stood in the living room, staring at the screen without really seeing it while I retreated to the bedroom to start packing my things. In the following weeks, I organized my life and my finances. The divorce was processed without a hitch, and little by little, I began to rediscover the independence and peace that I had lost. I moved to a small apartment, decorating it to my liking, every object and color chosen by me, symbolizing a new beginning. This liberation from the toxic marriage with Cameron not only marked the end of a painful chapter, but also the beginning of my personal renaissance. With each passing day, I felt stronger, more determined, and most importantly, happier. I was alone, yes, but a chosen solitude that allowed me to rebuild my life at my own pace and on my own terms. Finally free from chaos and negativity, I was able to look to the future with hope and optimism. The decision to divorce, although difficult, was the first crucial step on my path to emotional recovery and true happiness. I knew that the path would not be easy, but I also knew that it would be full of new opportunities to grow, learn, and eventually love again. After finishing the painful divorce process, I found myself with the need to rebuild my life from scratch, without a place to go that I could truly call home. I decided to return to my adoptive father's house, the only place that had always offered me refuge and understanding. I was not sure how he would receive me, given that it had been a considerable time since we last saw each other, especially over the years of tumultuous moments of my marriage with Cameron. When I arrived at the house, it looked just like in my childhood memories, a sanctuary of peace that contrasted strongly with the chaos I had left behind. I rang the doorbell with some nervousness, holding my suitcase, a symbol of all the changes that the family was going through. The door opened, and there he was, my adoptive father, with his serene countenance and a smile that invited me to come in. "Rebecca, my daughter," It's been a long time since I've seen you," he exclaimed with open arms. I couldn't help the impulse to run towards him and hug him tightly. In that embrace, it felt like all the tensions and weight of the last few years were beginning to dissolve. "Dad, thank you for having me," I murmured. "You will be welcome here. This is your home." My mother's constant kindness facilitated this process. We walked through the garden, prepared meals together, and shared long conversations by the fireplace at night. It was during those talks that I rediscovered the love and peace that I had missed so much, Dad. "I've been through a lot," I confessed one night while we were watching the dancing flames of the fire. "The divorce was harder than I imagined. I know, daughter, and I'm sorry you had to go through it alone. But remember, the important thing is that you are here now and that you can count on me," he said, reaching out a hand to mine. In those moments, I valued the true family ties that remained. The relationship with my adoptive father, although not perfect, was sincere and full of unconditional love that I had not felt in years. He taught me again to appreciate the little things in life, finding beauty in calm and accepting the past while looking to the future. In an environment that nourished my spirit and healed old emotional wounds, I was ready to start again, Dad. "I want to find who I really am without the shadows of the past that haunt me," I told him one day, determined to take the reins of my life. "And I will be here supporting you at every step, as it should always have been," he stated, giving me a hug that sealed his promise of support and understanding. The peace and love that I found in my adoptive father's house were the true balm that I needed. With each passing day, the scars of the past began to heal, leaving me ready to face new challenges and eventually open my heart again to love. But this time, with the wisdom and strength that I had gained, this stage of my life was not only a return to a physical place, but a return to myself, to my roots, and to what I really value in life. Several months after my return to my parents' house, once settled and beginning to feel in control of my life again, I decided to go out and socialize a little. The idea was to simply relax and enjoy the night without expectations. I chose a small and cozy bar that had recently opened near my house. The atmosphere was warm, and the soft music provided the perfect background for a night of disconnection. Upon entering the bar, my attention was immediately captured by the waiter who was tending the bar. It was Thomas. I recognized him instantly, even though his back was turned. His posture, the way he moved with confidence and care among the customers, there was no doubt that it was him. "Thomas!" I exclaimed, unable to contain my surprise and joy at seeing him again. He turned when he heard his name, and for a moment an expression of surprise crossed his face. However, it quickly transformed into a warm and welcoming smile. "Emily, how have you been? It's a surprise to see you here," he said, his voice reflecting genuine pleasure at the reunion. "I'm very much better, thank you. It's been a long time, eh? I see you're working here now," I responded, approaching the bar. "Yes, I took this job a few months ago. I like it. It gives me the opportunity to meet many interesting people," Thomas explained while preparing a coffee that someone had ordered. I couldn't help but notice how much he had changed. Not only did he seem more mature and self-confident, but there was also a gentleness in his movements and a calmness in his voice that caught my attention deeply. "And how have you been after all?" he asked, handing the coffee to the customer before giving me his full attention. "It's been a difficult road, but I'm rebuilding. I went back to live with my adoptive father for a while," I shared, feeling comfortable in his presence. Thomas nodded. His expression showed understanding and support. "I'm glad that you are taking steps to heal. I always knew you were strong, Rebecca," he said. We talked for hours about everything and nothing at the same time, reconnecting as if I hadn't spent time away. In Thomas, I found Not only a friend, but also someone who resonated with my own dreams and hopes. Thomas, you have shown me a lot of kindness since I met you. I wonder. I paused, looking for the right words. Yes, he encouraged me with a smile that reassured me. If you would like to go out one day, have a drink outside of your work, in a place where you don't have to serve, to the others, I proposed, my voice almost a whisper. Thomas's smile widened, and his eyes shone with a mixture of happiness and something that could be hope. I would love to, Rebecca. It would be an honor to go out with you. This reunion with Thomas not only rekindled an old friendship, but also opened the door to new possibilities. It showed me that it was still possible to build the family and home I had always dreamed of, starting with small moments of genuine connection like this. With every conversation, every shared laugh, and every understanding look, the bond between us grew stronger, and I began to believe again in the possibility of a future full of love and understanding. Thomas, with his maturity and attention, was proving to be the type of partner with whom I could share not only my days, but also my dreams. After several months of dating, Thomas and I rebuilt my life away from the turbulence that I had with Cameron. I had begun to see a clear and promising future with Thomas. He had not only become my closest companion, but a constant source of support and love. One afternoon, while we were walking through the park under a twilight sky tinted orange and magenta, we began to talk about our dreams and future plans together. Thomas, I have been thinking a lot about us. I began to feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Yes, Rebecca, what's wrong? He asked, his voice full of that calm that he always achieved to appease. I think I'm ready. The next time we meet, I want to be ready to marry you. I want us to be a family, I said, looking into his eyes, trying to read his reaction. Thomas's smile lit up, and his eyes reflected the same happiness and love that he felt in my heart. Rebecca, that's all I've ever wanted to hear. You don't need art at all. Just saying yes is enough for me, he answered, taking my hands in his. Then, is it a promise? I asked, my voice barely a whisper among the soft murmur of the breeze. It's a promise, he confirmed, and at that moment, we sealed our commitment with a soft kiss full of meaning and promises of a future together. Meanwhile, Cameron was facing the consequences of his past actions. After our divorce, he tried to manipulate me once again by trying to access my finances under false pretexts. However, I was prepared and managed to block his attempts, which left him frustrated and even more in debt. A mutual friend told me that Cameron had accumulated significant debts, including credit cards and quick loans, hoping for a miracle that never came. Everything had gone away, accumulated to a critical point. He is drowning in debt, said the friend, showing a mixture of concern and disapproval, and I think he deserves it after everything he did to you. Although part of me felt sorry for Cameron's desperate situation, I knew that everyone reaps what they sow, and his decisions had brought him to that point. I did not wish harm on anyone, but I also understood that it was necessary for him to face the consequences of his actions in order to, perhaps, learn and change. With Thomas, everything was different. He had shown me what it means to have a relationship based on mutual respect, trust, and support. Our future together looked bright, and with each passing day, I was more convinced that making the decision to be with him had been the best choice of my life. We are going to build something beautiful together, Thomas. Something real and lasting, I said with conviction as we headed into the sunset, ready to begin a new chapter full of love and the promise of a better tomorrow. With each step we took, the past was left behind, and the path forward became clear, full of new possibilities and the hope of a life full of happiness and shared love. Rebuilding my life with Thomas and close to my adoptive father has been a process full of learning and significant moments. After all the chaos and manipulation that I experienced with Cameron, now I feel on a stable path, surrounded by love and respect, just what I had always wanted. One afternoon, while Thomas and I enjoyed a coffee on the small terrace that we had arranged in my new home, we talked about our future plans, excited about the idea of forming a family together. "Thomas, did you ever imagine that we would end up like this?" I asked with a smile, watching as the sun slowly set, turning the sky into warm colors. "To be honest, I always hoped to find someone like you," he replied, taking my hand. "But I didn't know it would be in such turbulent circumstances. Now that we are together, I feel like everything makes sense. I am excited for what the future holds, especially for starting a family with you," I said, squeezing his hand. "After everything I went through, having your support and the love of my adoptive father really makes me believe in new beginnings. I want our home to be full of love, something I never had with Cameron," I continued. Thomas nodded, his expression serious. "And that is exactly what we will have. A home where respect and understanding are the basis of everything, and of course, a lot of love." In planning our life together, I also spent time with my adoptive father, strengthening the ties we had reestablished. One afternoon, I decided to talk to him about everything. "Dad, I've been thinking. I want you to know how much I thank you for everything," I told him during one of our walks in the park close to home. "Emily, you don't have to thank me. I'm your father, and I will always be here for you, no matter what happens," he answered, his voice full of emotions. "Yes, but you helped me get out of a very difficult situation. You showed me that I deserve to be treated with respect and love, not only by my partner, but by everyone in my life," I said. "Exactly, daughter, and never forget that you deserve the best. Thomas is a good man, and I see how much he loves and respects you. That makes me happy, because I know that he and you will build that beautiful and loving future that I always wanted," he replied. "With the support of my father and the love of Thomas, I feel stronger and more secure than ever. I am anxious for the future, knowing that it will be bright and full of happiness. The idea of forming a family with Thomas in an environment where love and mutual respect are something that fills me with hope and emotion. These moments of peace and love are what I always dreamed of. And now, with Thomas by my side and my father supporting me, I know that my dreams are becoming a reality. The future I want so much is finally within reach of my hand, and this time I am completely ready to embrace it with all my heart, free from manipulations and from any shadow of the past. The scars have begun to heal, and in their place bloom possibilities and promises of days full of love and joy. If you liked this story, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. This other video that appears on the screen will probably move you.